In the History Project. I'm your host, Norm Taylor. Good having you along today, and hopefully everybody's having a great day, great week, and a great month. And I know that, boy, we've come through the winter here of 2011 and 2012, and it hasn't even seemed like winter. I mean, when we're doing this tape right now, it's actually March. And folks, we have 70-degree plus weather. I mean, it's just unbelievable weather, and it makes me want to go out and almost plant a garden. Well, at least I'm going to maybe try to get some green onions out and some radishes pretty soon. And boy, what a fantastic spring we're having. But I hope you're having a great spring too. I've got some guests with me today, and we're doing some veteran shows again. You know, over the years, and we've been doing this about 5 years, Lee and I have been working together for all that time. We started doing the first shows together on veterans. In fact, it was Lee's idea that we start the Oral History Project for the veterans. And, you know, over those years, people see me out and they say, you know, boy, I wish my grandfather or my father or my brother, whatever, that is no longer with us could have talked to you. We could have got his story on there, but you know, he's since passed, and I've heard this story. I don't know how many times I've heard this story, and you know, so we got thinking a while back. Well, we can still preserve the history of our veterans by what we're going to do today. I've got two guests with me today that will be actually doing that. They're going to be representing people that of their family that served. And even though they're not with us in the physical sense anymore, but yet they still, their patriotism, all of the work that they've done for the country, their years of service, we want to make sure that that gets preserved. And so that's what we're going to do today. And so we're glad to get started. And hopefully it gets you folks thinking out there too. That, well, maybe that the pictures I have of my grandfather, my father that's no longer with us, well, I would like to have his story told and preserved. Well, we'd like to have you on the air as well and do what these kind ladies are going to do today. And I say kind ladies because they haven't thrown anything at me. They haven't been mean to me. In fact, they're smiling at me. Well, boy, and it kind of makes you wonder what they're up to, don't you, whenever they're smiling at me like that. Let me introduce my guests, and then we're going to get on to the interview. Debra Davis. Debra, it's good having you.
Good to be here, too.
You know, usually when I have Debra on, I'm talking about cemeteries or something.
It's always about the dead.
You know, Debra, you know, I spend a lot of time in cemeteries. You spend a lot of time in cemeteries. Boy, we must have a boring life. But we're not going to be talking about a cemetery today. But we've had Debbie on talking about. Have you been at least once or twice? Twice, yeah. And your husband Claude's been on with us, and it's good to have you with us, Deborah. And you have a friend. Now, yes. I assume this is a friend.
Yes, a very good friend.
I didn't know you had any friends.
They're short.
You got one. Okay, good. Dee Anderson. Dee, it's good having you with us as well. Okay. Now, you don't hang out in cemeteries like Debra does, do you?
No.
Okay, good. So we've got one sane person on this one. Okay, and then we've got Lee. Lee, it's good having you with me today.
I'm the anchor.
You are the anchor, boy, and Lee's going to be talking about his third book, and he writes about a book a month, I think, and well, not quite that much, but
maybe a story a month.
A story a month, yeah. But he's done a lot of writing. His books are very popular in the area, and he's going to be talking about his third book in just a few minutes. But Debra, we've talked over a period of time about preserving the legacy and the history of our veterans, especially those that have passed, and you had some material for me, and who are you going to honor today? Who are we going to preserve their history?
Well, once my dad, his name was Wilbur Lucas, and he was drafted in June 12th, 44, and he got out in December the 8th of 45, but he had 3 small kids, but he still got drafted at that age for World War II. And he was over in Europe, and he drove a 2.5 touring truck hauling supplies, equipment, convoy duty, stuff like that. And he even hauled General Patton around some.
Oh, is that right?
Right. Yeah. And I wanted to honor him, and also my husband's uncles. He had 3 of them that was in active duty at the same time. Merle Davis, Robert Davis and Emmett Bud Davis.
Okay.
So their
these are the
mom
ones
had 3, and they was over in the Philippines. 2 was in the Philippines, 1 was in Japan, but the 2 in the Philippines happened to run into each other over there and got a chance to talk.
My goodness.
And
So there's actually 4 people that we're going to preserve their history today.
yes.
Now we're talking about, let's go back to your dad. Tell us a little bit about him in growing up. What kind of fellow was he like?
Very quiet. When he spoke, and you better listen. He spoke with his eyes.
Yeah. Boy, they can say a lot, doesn't they? Yeah.
Yes, yes. He was a very quiet guy. To me, always very loving. He passed away early in life. I wasn't very old when he passed away.
Okay.
But there was...
How old were you, Debra?
I was 11, or 14 when he passed away.
But you can still remember quite a bit
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. We lived in the country, and he worked at Cummins, and we lived way down in Brown County. But he, like I said, he always got his point across. Mom was the one that always disciplined us, but Dad's the one that we knew we better listen to.
Your brothers and sisters, how many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had 5 brothers and 2 sisters.
Oh, boy, you had a big family.
Yes.
So at a time when you guys were pretty young, children, at the time when your father passed away, that must have been some pretty difficult times then for a while.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Where did you fall in? Were you oldest, youngest, and in the middle? Where?
Next to the baby. I'm the baby girl.
Okay, so did the other siblings kind of help take care of you during that time, or?
Yes,
During
yes.
that time, a very difficult time then.
Yeah, they helped. They were there. We moved, and my brother lived right beside of us, and they was there to help pitch in. And my sister-in-law, she was really good about that.
Yeah. That would create quite a bond with the siblings, even more, wouldn't it? I mean, you know, you become very close when you go through something like that.
Yes, well, considering all the circumstances, I think we're close. There's only 3 of us left now.
Is that right? Okay. With your dad, you say, what year did he go into the service?
44.
Okay. Did he talk to you much about his time in the service or later on? You know, so many people say, Debra, you know, that they mentioned some stories, and I've heard so many people say, I wish I'd have listened more, or I wish I'd have wrote them down. And I'm the same way. You know, my dad was in Korea, and he's been gone now for 20 years. And now some of the stories I heard all my life, they've become hazy. And so I wish I had written some of them down. But do you remember did your dad ever talking about his service at all?
No, I don't remember him talking about it. And I talked to my aunts and uncles and my other siblings, and they said Dad just didn't talk about it. But now his brother told me that he's the one that he said he told about driving General Patton around. But we do have letters that Mom and Dad had wrote to each other, and letters that people had wrote to Dad. He preserved them, and we still they're at my house now.
Okay.
So we have got some info just by reading them.
Yeah.
How bad it was, and it's how he missed the family, and he was always concerned about the family, what Mom was doing, how she was doing with the 3 boys.
Thank goodness, Debra, that somebody preserved these letters.
Yes.
Was it your mother that preserved them?
My mother she kept them first, but then she died before Dad did. But our stepmom kept them.
Oh, okay.
And then when she got sick and had to move out, we went through her house and we found them.
You know, it's and how many times we heard that story after someone's gone, that you know, going through stuff, and boy, you know, fortunately somebody will run across these treasures like this, and they don't throw them away, but they will keep them. And boy, what a great way to preserve the history of it. You have a picture of your dad there?
Yes, I do.
I know you got a picture somewhere. I remember seeing some picture there.
Yeah, what did I do with it?
And you have saved a lot of letters and documents there. And yeah, I remember somewhere along the lines a nice picture.
Yeah, I just had it too.
Yeah, well, maybe.
But what interested me when I was going through the letters was the different sizes of the envelopes, and part of them was free. It said free postage.
Yeah, hold on, so let people see. I think in the camera, maybe right up here.
Right there.
Yeah.
And
Great picture.
I've got a big picture of all of them together, and trying to pick out which one was Dad.
Yeah, right. And the information on that picture there that you held up, Deborah, what about that? Well, you know what year it was, or what was the circumstances involved there?
No, I don't. I don't know if that's what his enlistment picture that they took of him, or whether this is one whenever he got in. I don't know.
Is it, Lee, would there be any way that you can tell from that picture about when that
I would say that's when he was discharged or
Probably
in
discharged.
service, because he
Yeah.
has full uniform and tie and et cetera, all ready for inspection.
Okay.
That's,
And there's a picture on the behind there. Is that anything of significance or not there?
we was raised in Elkinsville. I don't know if you ever heard of
Elkinsville, I've heard of it.
This was the one-room school at Elkinsville that we went to,
Hey, that's great.
and it's
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great there. Everyone else, you have some other things that you've kept of your dad, and somewhere along the lines you got interested in trying to find out more about his military service, didn't you?
Yes.
How did that come about?
mainly reading the letters that Mom and Dad had wrote to each other, and the ones that his mom and sisters and kin had wrote to him. It was interesting as a part of his life that I was isolated from, you might as well say. But that's part of my history too, because if all these people hadn't been in the war, then we wouldn't be where we're at now.
Yeah.
And it didn't just take one; it took the whole crew.
Right. They call it the greatest generation.
Yes.
I've heard that. Let's see what you've got there. Would you mind holding up some of that there? How you were able to preserve? Because I want people to get an idea again. If they want to do this for their veteran that they had, while we can, and you've done a good job of preserving some of those things. What do you have here in your hands now, Deborah?
This is his AMP of the United Army, States Army, separation qualification record. I can't talk good. But this is when it tells when he was entered and when he got out, and it tells some of his duties that he was done before he went there. It says that he worked at Cummins, and it told his duties.
And now, somebody again preserved this. Was this your
Yes.
stepmother that preserved this as well?
I presume.
Well, thankfully she did
Yes.
that.
I
That's great.
made copies because I've got the original, but these are copies.
Yeah.
And I like putting them in these plastic things to keep them from getting sold.
And with the way that we can do now with I mean, you can go down to CVS now with just an amazing thing they can do with old pictures and documents of restoration.
Yes.
Now that we have available to us, it is amazing how we can preserve this. But it's a good idea to make these copies, isn't it,
yes.
Lee, of something like this?
Yes,
Because when you got the original, yeah, that's a special thing.
Yes.
But if something happens to that, then it's gone. So we'd encourage people making copies of that, wouldn't we?
Many of those are recorded at the recorder's office. Well, when we came back, we'd take our discharge and then they would record it. So someplace it's on microfilm at the recorder's office,
Okay. Okay, good.
if you're local, or wherever wherever their county seat was.
Okay. What else we have there, Debbie?
Okay. I found out that he was in the hospital, but it never did really say what from.
And when he was over in Europe, he was in the hospital?
Yes, he was. Now I do remember the story that somebody said he shot his foot accidentally. But,
Oh, okay. Okay.
but I'm not for sure. And this it's just a big long normal envelope anyway. But
Yeah.
it's to me it means something. It just
What's it mean to you, Debbie?
it means that Dad was very proud to do what he did,
Yeah.
and for us to help carry on that legacy.
And it's kind of neat to see the way the envelopes looked and maybe the way that the stamps looked and how it was even at that time. That's kind of a capsule,
Yes.
isn't it, into the past as
Yes.
well? Okay.
This was a Western Union, and I thought, we text, Facebook, cell phone, but then they had to use a Western Union, and it's hard to tell them how long it took from the time Dad sent this until Mom actually got it, and how much stuff had happened in the meantime. But I'm sure there was a lot. It says, I arrived safely, expect to see you soon. Don't attempt to contact me or write me here. Love, Wilbur.
Okay.
It's short and sweet, but
Remember, the Western Union played another part too, because they had to deliver somebody was killed in action.
Yeah.
then the Western Union man had to go out through the countryside and deliver that telegram, and people lived in fear of seeing that Western Union car coming to their home.
Yep.
And the neighbors would all, if they saw it, they knew something had happened.
Yeah.
No, that's, yeah. That'd be awful.
Western Union carried bad news.
Yeah.
Now, this Western Union was delivered to Dad, and I thought the same thing. He'd be on the field.
Yeah.
His mom was real bad sick at the time.
You know how much it would have cost to use Western Union by any chance back then?
Practically nothing.
Okay.
Compared to,
Yeah.
And I don't know what all
because
that
the Western
is.
Union cooperated with the services.
Okay.
You see, like your mail was free, your postage was free, etc. And when my mother wrote to me, it was a 3-cent stamp. Little old
Okay.
stamp, little old envelope with a 3-cent stamp.
Stamp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it now? 45?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else there, Debbie?
Okay. Now, this is the envelope. Like he said, like Lee said, see how
Well,
small?
you copied the envelopes. You copied everything going.
Yeah, but that is
That's good.
actually the size of the envelope. And this was the paper that he had wrote on. And how small the paper is and how little the paper is. And they used any paper they could find, and pencils. They had trouble finding the pencils to write with. And I found some that he had wrote to my brothers. And then we had found some that the two older boys was old enough to write at that time. And they had wrote Dad back. And of course, they took them, you know.
Yeah.
But
That may be a V-mail on the back there.
A
Let me see
V-mail?
that. No, this one right here. Yes, this one's a V-mail.
And
And they would write that, we would write on a little sheet of paper, and they would photograph it and send it back to the United States and develop it and mail it to you. So that's a V-mail.
Oh, okay.
Victory
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
well, that's
See,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, it says it right
Yeah,
there.
it does.
Well, I
it
knew
was.
it said that, but I didn't know what it
But
meant.
Kodak developed that.
Oh, okay.
And that was
Well, I
a
wondered how
quick
he
way.
wrote so little.
Well, they would shrink it.
Okay.
They had to
Oh.
censor it too. Mostly they had to, our officers always had to censor what we wrote. But then they would
Okay.
photograph it, and then it took nothing to send it back. And then when they printed it, we'd deliver it. So you saved a lot on freight and postage.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know
Learned
that either.
something.
So, Lee, whenever, someone wrote a letter, then did every letter before it was ever shipped out, it had to be censored, it had to be looked over then before, because they didn't want any kind of positions that would have been, I guess, revealed. Or,
Well, and it was for the morale of the folks back home, because you say, well, John got shot today. Well, that would discourage people at home. And so the censor would always, a lot of mine had big black mark out parts. And my mother would, because they couldn't censor my mother, so she'd write back and say, what happened? I'd write back, I can't tell you. Because in our case, the co-pilot censored our crew's mail. Anything we wrote had to go through our co-pilot before it was sent out. We didn't mail it. We wrote it and handed it to the co-pilot.
So if someone wanted to write, I'm scared, or my best buddy was killed yesterday, or some depressing things, would they have marked something like that out?
Or we lost 3 planes yesterday. Mark it out.
And marked it out.
They didn't want to discourage. Well, we were fighting for our lives, and the people back home were giving us the supplies and working in the factories, so we had to keep their morale up as well as ours.
Yeah.
Our morale was shot anyway, but back home they wanted to keep them in good humor.
So Lee, if eventually, I guess you would learn that, well, this ain't going to get through, so I'm just not even going to say it. I guess that's the way you would pick up on that.
Not say, to leave things out that might be discouraging to people or might give information. You know, if you told exactly where you were and everything. That's why he said, don't try to contact me, because you weren't supposed to know where he was.
Yeah. I wonder when they started that. You know, I noticed in like Civil War letters and stuff, they were pretty graphic about things back then that came
Oh yeah,
home.
because they didn't censor.
Yeah. I wonder when they started censoring.
World War II probably.
That's interesting.
It was so desperate, and we were fighting all over the world, and everybody went.
Yeah.
And as soon as you were 18, you were in. And
Well,
I mean,
now,
it was a terrible time.
whenever those soldiers started coming home, Lee, then they would have been telling these stories.
Oh yeah.
And so would it have been surprised with people because they weren't getting this from the front?
Well, they saw the news they knew what was happening on
Yeah.
news. The news, like now, you can see on television everything that's happening,
Yeah, I don't
but you
agree with
don't, but it's
that.
not happening to you, to your loved one. It's
Yeah.
happening to some, like, most people don't even know where Afghanistan or Iran or Iraq, Iran, well, we don't know where it is.
Yeah.
We're just kind of detached from it. And so then, but the television tells all.
Yeah.
But then, it was a matter of, I mean, had our backs against the wall, and the people on the West Coast worried about Japan invading, and the people on the East Coast had submarine watches all the time for the German submarines.
Yeah.
Always expected somebody to land.
And I've heard people say, that anybody that has an interest in World War II era, that, they would have never even heard of the South Pacific, Midway, Guam, any of these islands, if it hadn't been for what happened. I mean, these would have been, because they were just little islands out there in the South Pacific, but people got really a geographic lesson there whenever they were hopping, toward Japan. And so, but people finally started learning where some of these places were at. I'm sure it was true with Europe and everywhere else.
Yeah, the Navy played a big job. She's going to talk about, the Navy played a big job in the South Pacific.
Yeah, we're going to get to the area. Yes, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, they were very, very important.
Yes.
Yeah, they sure are. Debbie, again, anything else that you, whenever you found these, and thankfully you preserved this, because your dad's story certainly needs to be preserved. Anything that really came out in any one of the letters that really stand out in your mind, that a revelation to you, or something that you found out about your dad that surprised you, or that would have endeared you even more? Anything like that through the letters?
He talked about praying, that he done a lot more praying while he was over there than while he was home. And mainly just how worried he was about his family being here, and there he was over there in those rough conditions, but he had time. He worried about all of us, even though he knew they were safe.
Yeah.
Because his mom and dad didn't live too far from where they lived.
Yeah.
And they helped take care of each other. But he talked about, and how he would run into somebody else while they were over there, and to tell everybody hi, and how much the letters really meant to them to help lift their morals up.
Yeah.
And sometimes they wasn't able to write for 2 or 3 weeks, for different reasons.
And thankfully, again, your stepmother preserved these letters and all that, because that's what you have now. And guys, let me just throw this out to you, because it seems to me in our day of technology now, in which we're not writing letters anymore, like we used to. It's very rare now. And we're sending emails, we're sending texts, we're on Facebook, and we're getting all this information out there, but it's gone. It's not being preserved. I thought about this, Lee, someday in the future, we may pay the penalty for this, because, like I say, with these letters we've been able to preserve, but, I get a lot of texts and emails from people every day, but they're deleted. And there's no written back to this.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That's the reason I write short stories. I want people to read, but they won't read a book if they'll read short stories in a book.
Yeah, that's right.
And so people are just conditioned. I don't like to sit down and read an entire book about a subject. I just want to read the facts, the short story. And so that's what you're getting on the computers.
Yeah.
You're getting the basics or the texting. And like you're right, it is going to be gone, but then so much has been gone anyway that maybe what's happening now is not as relevant as it was in time of war.
I thought about this more whenever we start preserving things, and how we have to rely upon old letters for these information. I think someday we're not going to have that, the thoughts of that. But then on the other hand, they say, well, that's true, but we're able to document now better in the way of photography. That's true, and audio, and I guess that's true too. So I guess there is a trade-off there. Debra, what about the other people you have here? Who is this now again?
They are my husband's uncles.
Okay.
They were over in Uncle Bud.
Right.
He had just graduated high. They drafted him before he graduated high school, but he got to finish his high school, and he went to Japan. And then his brothers, they were Merle and Robert. They went to the Philippines, and they both had kids whenever they were drafted too. And they sent home different pictures of just different things. Their tents.
Let's show our audience what again, and we'll try to get close pictures if we
Okay,
can see these.
yeah,
but what are these pictures of here, Debbie?
This is just of a tent. Again, this is just copies. I didn't want to mess with the originals.
Yeah, right.
A tent, and this is over in Japan, and this is Uncle Bud in Japan, and then this is Uncle Bud also in Japan. But the real ones, it shows a little better the backgrounds, you know.
Right.
And he said, this was another in Japan, but it was Roy somebody. But all these was over in Japan. But they was from Uncle Bud. And then their money. Now, we've got the bills actually.
Okay.
But I just want to make copies of them.
Right.
And what they represent, Lee can tell you more about that than I can.
What they were worth was always a mystery. You just handed it out and waved.
and went on. But this was in the Bedford paper where the two brothers met over in the Philippines.
Okay.
And
what's the story behind that there, Debbie?
I don't really know the story.
You don't know?
But they was both over there, and Merle was pointing. They was at Luzon, and this is and he's pointing to the mountains. But they just happened to run across each other over there. But I'm sure that they knew both of them was over there.
But it was a chance meeting that they got together then. Okay.
Yeah.
And what years was this right now that you're talking about when they were in the Philippines?
45.
In 45,
45.
okay.
I'm not for sure what month, but in 45. But Uncle Robert was over there in 43 and 44. So he was over there for quite a while.
Okay.
But their mom was, to have 3 boys on the front line in the fighting and the combat zone, I cannot imagine what they went through.
Yeah.
I just cannot imagine.
You said something a while ago about your dad doing a lot of praying. And I was thinking this morning about importance of religion in time of war. Everybody did a lot of praying. And the churches here back home were full of parents praying. And the boys over there, you learn to pray in a hurry when you're in combat. But you see, the church has kind of lost influence today. Church membership is down and everything. We don't have that crisis that we need. And suddenly people don't think they need God so much. And so it's a change of times. But I can remember then that the churches were full and new churches would start. And you had tent revival meetings, and the boys over there all went to chapel. We had a chapel on the base, etc.
Yeah.
And
the old saying that there's no atheists in foxholes.
Yeah, that's true.
That.
If he's an atheist in a foxhole, he's got a lot of strength, I think, because you needed all the help you had.
Yeah. Debra, is there anything else in these you'd like to say on that? When did, for the 3 that you were talking about here, kind of give us a breakdown again when they were born and when they passed?
Oh, okay.
Oh, we don't know that.
You caught me there.
Can you give even about?
Merle was the oldest one. I'm thinking he's born in, the youngest one was born in 33.
Okay.
So they was probably born in their 20s.
He would have been in the reason why I'm asking is because he would have been in his teens or in their 20s whenever they were in the service.
Yeah. Okay. Bud just turned 18.
Okay.
And he was in there.
Yeah.
So it's Uncle Merle passed away. No, it's been quite a while ago.
Okay.
And the other 2, it's not been too awful long.
Okay. So they returned and they were actually in civilian life for several years.
And they didn't want to talk about it either. I tried to talk to their families about some of it.
Yeah, boy, Lee, don't we run into that? I mean, we have a lot of veterans, and I know, Lee, you've had that too. They said, boy, Norm, we love it when you do those programs. I said, well, why don't you come on? No, I don't want to do it. But how many times have you heard that?
I've been very lucky. I've found guys who would talk
Yeah,
and guys who would tell their stories.
yeah, we sure have. Thank you, Debra, for sharing this, these very personal things. Dee Anderson, Dee, who are we going to remember and honor today?
My dad, Charles Richard.
Tell us something about Charles.
Well, he was the oldest of 3 children, and he joined the Navy in August of 25th of 1942. He was in the Navy for 3 years and 1 month and 5 days, and he crossed the equator several times, and the first time was October 4th of 1944, and he started off on the oil tanker, and then he was, transferred
Transferred to another ship.
to the USS West Virginia. And
Heard of that ship.
I've got an article here that it rode into Pearl Harbor on December 7th for a revenge mission.
Huh.
So it said that the ship has 8 enemy planes to its credit and assisted in the destruction of 9 others. And it also was officially accredited with sinking a Jap battleship. And he said that,
And your dad was serving on the ship at this time,
Yes.
so he was involved in the Pearl Harbor.
yes.
Yeah.
And he said that they were docked next to the USS Arizona when it was bombed. And he knew several of the crewmen on that ship.
Yeah.
And
Did your dad talk about that any?
not much. I know of, he told me about the USS Arizona being bombed, and then he told me once that his ship was hit, and he was a water tenderer, or fireman, or whatever you want to call him then, that the guy next to him, when the ship got hit, it hit all the boilers, and the guy next to him just kind of disintegrated. But that's only 2 stories that he ever talked about. Mm-hmm. So he was very close-mouthed.
Yeah.
But
So the information you got from this, then you got later about
Yes.
about this, and how did you obtain this information on this part of his service?
When he got out of the service, him and my stepmother moved to Florida, and after she died, he came back up here for a visit, and we just was talking one day, and I asked him something about maybe when he crossed the equator and all the initiations that he had to go through, and then he told me about the Arizona and his buddy next to him.
Okay, so you got the verbal from
Right.
the oral part from him directly about what the information you're giving us now.
Right.
Was it something that at that point in time, Dee, that he was just wanting to talk about, or do you remember how the conversation even got to that point?
No, like I said, I think we was talking about his initiation when they crossed the equator. You go from a pollywog to a tadpole or whatever it is. I don't know, but he was telling me, and I was looking through his Navy books, and he was telling me, you probably had to go up and kiss King Neptune's big fat belly with slop or whatever grease on it, and then he just started talking about those 2 other incidents,
Okay.
and then that's about all he ever talked about was those 2.
Well, when this incident occurred, and I probably all of us are thinking that a lot of people that are watching this, they can remember, we have no idea that sometimes like this short, brief window of opportunity opens up whenever they talk about a story like that. Not only about our veterans, but maybe a grandmother or a grandfather will tell you a story that happened in their childhood or something, and it's very brief. And when we're younger, we don't really think in terms like we do now about how important these are. But isn't it true, Dee, that boy, all of a sudden, like this window opens up, but then it closes.
Right. It was very quick.
And then, but you were able to remember this, thankfully.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's all of a sudden it's gone. And we learn this as we get older, that these opportunities come. I mean, I wish when I was younger I knew about this, but I learned it later. But now it seems, boy, just for like a couple or 3, 5 minutes there, that window was open up, wasn't it, to you?
Right.
And then it was shut again,
Yeah.
and then it went on.
Yeah, and some of the letters that he wrote home to his mother, one of them, I know he said, "I can't tell you where I'm at." You know, don't ask, like Debbie said and
Yeah.
Leah said.
Yeah.
So they was very closed mouth, and
Right.
and I would assume that their letters were censored on the ship also.
Oh, yes.
But I've got about all the letters he had sent to his mother. She gave them to me,
Oh, good.
and he even sent her, I believe, it's a silk kimono, and I have that.
Okay.
And he was had some decorations: the American Theater, the Asiatic Pacific, 4 stars, Philippine Liberation, 1 or 2 stars, and the European Theater, 1 star. I have no idea what they are.
Can you
The number of battles they were in that area.
Oh,
So if you got a ribbon of the European, you'd have, and you got 1 star on it. Or if you were in 2 different battles, you got 2. Or if in the Pacific, if he went to Iwo Jima,
yeah, he was there too.
then he had a star for that. And before that, he probably went to another little island, and he might have had a star for that. It kind of designates. The servicemen know what it is, but the civilian, but it's an honor. Say, here, this guy was in 2 battles. So if he had 2 stars on the Pacific, well, he was in 2 big major combat battles.
So this Asiatic Pacific, 4 stars, he was.
So he was in 4 different battles, or 4
Okay.
four different combat zones.
Well, thanks. I learned something every time.
well, good.
I mean, my granddaughter is married to Zach, and he's in the Navy, and I have showed him all this stuff, and he looked, and he said, "Well, your dad was like an E3." I said, "What's that?" And he said he was kind of up on the ladder in rank.
Like a sergeant.
So, you know, and I didn't know that. But so my grandson had to tell me that,
Yeah.
but this here, you know, tells where all they went, and Iwo Jima and Mindanao and Leyte. So it,
He was quite involved, wasn't
Yeah, he was very involved.
and I've got his,
he? What is that there? You want to hold that up where people can see it there?
it's
Dee?
called the Domain of the Golden Dragon, having to cross the international date line.
When he crossed the equator, they gave him this card to prove that he had crossed the equator.
Oh,
It was
okay.
quite an honor, you know, to cross the equator,
Now,
the date line.
Okay, that's a copy of the original there?
Yeah.
Dee? Okay.
No, this
No,
is
that's
the,
it.
No, that's the original one.
Yeah.
yeah, this is it.
He carried that. He
Okay,
probably
you've
carried
seen
that
them
with
before
him.
then, Lee? Okay.
He carried that with him for a long time. No, I've never seen one, but I know.
Okay.
I've been reading John Freeman's book. He gave me a couple of books.
Yeah, uh-huh.
I'm learning.
Okay.
And then I have his Liberty card that he had.
And what's that, Lee?
When you go ashore, they give you a pass. It's just a pass, but the Navy called it Liberty. We just called it a pass, you know. But you had to have something to show that you were able to get off the base.
Okay.
If they gave you Liberty or to get off the ship, when they left the ship, they showed that to somebody. And that's one he just kept for a souvenir.
Okay. What if you lost that?
Well, you'd always get back on the ship.
But you just couldn't get back on. Okay.
They'd send people after you to make sure you came back on the ship.
Okay.
But if you lost it on the ship, you had to go through a lot of rigmarole to get another one. I guarantee you that.
I bet so. So you didn't want to lose that then,
No,
did
you
you, Lee?
didn't. You gotta
Okay.
hang on to that till you got off the ship.
And these are the originals that he kept all this time. So all this, the things you have you have quite a bit of this stuff that has been kept in pretty good shape then, Dee, all that, and it's been
Yeah.
protected? And
He had a little wooden chest with all this stuff in it. And so I've got this stuff and all the letters that he had sent to my granny. And
Very good.
Dee,
Make a good story.
it makes a good story.
Make
Dee,
a very good story.
It sure is. It sure is. Dee, the letters that he wrote, is there anything that you found out in the letters that really captured something about the essence of him, or about a story that you really enjoyed that you wouldn't mind sharing with the people?
Oh, Lordy. I haven't really read. To me, I mean, it's interesting, but I feel like I was intruding
Oh, really?
on this time
You
of
felt
his
like
life.
this was very personal then?
Yeah.
It probably was very personal.
Yeah, it probably wasn't meant for you to see, wasn't it?
1,000 miles away.
No, well, this one, where'd it go? They was going into Tokyo Bay, and said, boy, it seemed awful funny being that close to an enemy ship. And he said, it just doesn't seem possible being clear over here on the other side of the earth. The ship has also made a copy of its history. But he said you could look at the enemy ship and see the other crew members on it, that they were that close.
Cool. My goodness.
So, like I said, he was very close-mouthed about his tour of duty. And
Yeah, it's very chilling to look when the war's over and you can see the other guy. He was gonna, 2 days ago he was going to kill you and you were going to kill him, and now the peace has happened, and suddenly you're just people,
yeah.
live people.
But
And these letters were, and you know, the penmanship I've noticed in some of the, you know, the writing skills and all that seem to be so much better because people aren't writing as much now as what they did then. But so could you tell very much about the man as far as did he what's coming through the letters, whether he was a romantic type, a compassionate type, what was important to him? Can you gather any kind of information like that?
he wasn't the romantic type.
Okay.
He was, he always told me if I'd done something wrong when I was little, you know, he could whip me with a switch or a fly swatter and rolled up newspaper. It didn't fit. But if he started to undo his belt, he said I started dancing. So he was, he knew how to keep me under control. But then him and my mom divorced when I was 5. And but these mean a lot to me.
Yeah. Yeah, they've become treasures for you now.
And I've told my kids where they are, and I said, when I die, don't lose these, because you'll always have something about your grandpa.
Yeah. When you mention a fly swatter, boy, I'm glad somebody else had the experience of that. I always thought they created those things to kill flies. I mean, my mother, which probably is watching this, she didn't get that message. I mean, maybe she did it for that, but there was another reason why Mom had a fly swatter. Do you have a picture of your father by any chance there?
Yes, I do.
And we'll try to make, if you can hold that up, and I know it's small, but, and do you about know when this was taken, this picture?
Well, he joined the service in 42, so I'd say anywhere from 42 to maybe 43.
Okay.
But this is a list of his medals or decorations, whatever you want to call them. And
You know, Dee and Debra, when I look at these pictures, they just seem so young.
They were young. They were young.
I mean, it's just boys. Lee, and I know I've heard you say that, but these were just boys.
The teenagers,
When you look at this.
the teenagers fought the war.
Yeah.
And
Well, Dad was only 24, and he had 3 kids. But I mean, they're young.
Yeah, they were so young.
My grandkids are that age now.
Right.
well, Dad he graduated in 42, and he joined the Navy in August of 42, so he was 18 when he joined.
Yeah, just, my goodness. It's amazing that the weight of all this and our security and the war was placed on these. I can remember when I was 18 and, my goodness, I'm like at a 58, but 18. Dee, and Debbie, I'm going to throw this out to both of you, and Lee, I'm going to apologize because I wanted to get into your book, but
we
this
will
has
do
been
this.
some
We'll do
good.
this another time.
We can always do it because this has been some good stuff here today.
Oh, very good.
Very, very good. And so I don't mean
to.
to make you mad and shut you out, but these are kind of what we've been wanting to start all along because it is important to preserve the history of these veterans too, isn't it?
Yes,
that
it
can no
is.
longer speak for themselves, like what these two ladies have done. This is essential, and that's what we're trying to do to get our people out there. Listen, folks, these two ladies have done an excellent job of preserving this for history. I'm hoping that at 100 years from now, whenever all of us are way long gone, that people are going to be able to remember the service of these because of the time that these folks spent in preserving this. And if you're thinking like this, listen, get the information. Don't throw it away. Oh, I hear horror stories, folks. I hear horror stories of letters like this that was just burned, of things that were discarded. And I think, oh, my goodness. But you have a father or a grandfather that you want their memory preserved. And it doesn't have to always just be the veterans. I mean, if they were raised on a farm or if they were brought through the Depression or whatever the case would be, this is something that preserving it is extremely important to future generations. And, get this together. Contact Lee or myself and say, listen, I want to honor Dad. I want to honor my grandfather by coming in, and I've got some pictures. Well, we'd be happy with that, wouldn't we, Lee? We would be happy.
That's exactly what I do, telling the stories of these other guys, preserving their memories.
Yes, yeah.
And especially the ones who died, I write about them from their relatives who have preserved memories. I write about that. How much time do you have?
Well, we're about done. Okay. I mean, I know. We're about over,
I'm going to tell you about a woman in Kentucky.
Oh, yeah, we got time for a story.
She followed, her father was married, and her mother was pregnant. He went overseas. He was in my outfit, and he was shot down. His crew went down. She grew up. She was born after he died. Her mother wouldn't tell her much about it. Her mother remarried. But this woman started digging in records, and she has found enough material for 3 stories about her dad. She has photographs.
Oh.
She knows where he's buried.
Yeah.
We've talked to people in Holland who saw the plane.
Oh, my goodness.
And wrote it all up. And so this man's record has been preserved to the nth degree, all because of her interest in her father she never knew. And the mother told her one thing. Late in life, her mother told her, I never told you the story because I feel the story is this. We met for the last time before we went overseas, and we agreed not to look back, just to walk away like they do in the movies. And she looked back. And she felt, after he died, she felt the rest of her life that she had she'd caused something to happen.
Oh.
A terrible thing.
Yeah.
But the daughter has gone on and just all kinds of information.
Oh.
We know exactly where he's buried, and I have pictures of his grave, and she does, and everything.
Yeah.
So it's what you people do and what can be
Yes.
done if you persist in searching.
Right. Right.
Somebody knows the story.
Guys, let me throw this out to you 3, and we're about out of time. It's too bad because I think I'd like to go on with it, but does it ever worry either 3 of you, and either you guys can answer this, to think that in the future that somebody is no longer going to care about this? Do you ever think about that? Debbie, you think about that?
Oh, yes. Yes, I do. Because when you go to talk, I know my aunts and uncles do, but like you say, it's a different generation. The younger generation so tied up, which I was probably the same way. But I know that they know we've held on to all this stuff. Will they make room in their house for this stuff?
Yeah.
The story needs to be told, and it is being forgotten, and it's not being taught in the schools very much, maybe for 5 days or 4. And I talk to school classes. Some schools are not the least bit interested. Some teachers are. But the history is here, and everybody says, oh, the old man's making money. But I'm not making money, I'm telling stories.
Telling stories.
Right.
It's a big difference.
It's part of the United States history or legacy. It's just...
And someday the opportunity to talk with Lee, to you folks that knew to be able to firsthand, I'm getting to hear these stories now, and then our viewing audience is getting to hear these stories now. That's precious because Lee, I was going to say before we go, Dodie that was on our program, Newkirk, and from Medora area, nice fella. We had a few years ago on our program. He wore his actual uniform with us. Just passed, in the last couple days, 93 years old. And Lee, a lot of our veterans that we've had on have passed on. But
Oh, yeah.
but how many times? I know you've had this. I've had this experience. I've gone to the funeral home when I try to find out one of them. Don't always make it, but they said, "Boy, we appreciate that you got the story on before they passed."
Now, the stories,
You've heard that too. I
stories
know.
need to be told and recorded someplace, if it's on a CD or in a book.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say that I have enjoyed this morning and I appreciate you asking me here. And Lee, I want to thank you for telling me what some of these things
Yeah.
meant.
But I may be guessing, but you don't know the difference.
Yeah, but it sounded good.
He's got some good information.
I just
and,
got some information the other day from John Freeman down on 22nd Street. John was on our program,
Yeah, I
and
remember
he
John.
told us about the ships and
Right.
et cetera. And so I have his books, the same books you have about your dad. I have his ship books.
Guys, boy, it's been a good show. I've had with me Dee Anderson and Debra Davis and Lee Hutchinson today. We've been talking about veterans preserving the history of our brave soldiers that so long ago fought, and some have left us now, but we want to preserve their legacy. You've been watching the Indiana History Project. I'm your host, Norm Taylor. Thank you for watching.